How can your own child tell you to pay a lease in the home you provided, like you are a stranger? Why would she act so sure I had no options, like I was stuck and would always return to beg? What she did not know was that I was the only person who could decide who owned that house. My name is Caleb. I am 58 years old. I am the kind of man who keeps receipts, keeps appointments, and keeps my voice low. I worked most of my life as a facilities engineer. I fixed problems people did not see. I kept systems running. When things worked, nobody noticed me. When things failed, everybody blamed me. I learned to stay calm. I learned to handle things the proper way. My daughter Erin is 31. She is smart and fast when she speaks. She is also very sure of herself. When she was young, that confidence looked like courage. As she got older, it started to look like something else. It started to look like she could push people and still feel right. I did not want to believe that. I kept telling myself she was stressed. I kept telling myself she needed support. I kept telling myself that family means you stay. The house in this story is not a fancy mansion. It is a simple place in a quiet neighborhood. 2 floors, small yard, a porch that creaks on cold mornings, a driveway that fits 2 cars if you park carefully. I bought it years ago when Erin was still in school. I did it because I wanted one stable thing she could always return to. I did not buy it to win praise. I bought it because I had promised myself that my child would always have a safe landing. Erin moved back into the house after a rough year. She had a job change and a relationship that ended badly. I will not share details about that. It is her story, not mine. What matters is that she called me one afternoon and said she needed help. She said she could not handle everything alone. I told her I understood. I told her I could come by and fix a few things. I told her I could stay for a short time if she wanted, just until she got steady again. At first, it felt normal. She seemed grateful. She hugged me. She asked about my day. She asked me to cook the simple meals she liked when she was younger. I did not mind. I made soups. I made rice and vegetables. I fixed a leaky faucet. I patched a loose step on the porch. I replaced a broken outdoor light so she could see the driveway at night. Then the tone changed. It did not change in one big moment. It changed like a slow drip. One day, she started leaving notes on the counter. They were not mean at first. They were small reminders. She wanted shoes kept in a specific place. She wanted the living room blanket folded a certain way. She wanted the trash taken out earlier than I usually did it. I told myself it was fine. I told myself she was trying to feel in control again. Then her partner Logan started coming around more. Logan is in his mid-30s. He is confident in a way that fills the air. He walks into a room like he expects people to make space for him. He likes talking about how he lifts weights. He likes telling stories where he is always the smartest man in the room. He does not shout all the time. He does not need to. He uses tone. He uses smirks. He uses little comments that are just safe enough to deny later. When Logan was around, Erin acted different. She laughed louder. She teased me more. She corrected me in front of him, even for tiny things. If I said I planned to fix the garage door on Saturday, she would say I was always slow. If I suggested a cheaper grocery brand, she would say I did not understand quality. Logan would nod like he was judging a presentation. I would swallow the feeling and keep my face neutral. I started spending more time in the garage. Not because I was afraid of them, but because the garage was quiet. It smelled like wood and old tools. It was a space where my hands could work and my mind could settle. In the garage, nobody demanded that I perform for them. I could sort screws into small cups. I could sharpen a blade for a garden tool. I could do something simple and real. Inside the house, the rules became more formal. Erin put a small whiteboard near the fridge. She wrote lists on it. She called it a house plan. She wrote chores next to names. She wrote reminders in bold marker. Some days she would look at me and ask why something was not done yet. She would talk to me like I was a teenager who forgot homework. I would say I understood. I would do the task. I would go back to the garage. One afternoon, Erin handed me a set of papers. She said she needed me to sign them. She spoke fast. She said it was about the living arrangement. She said it was better for everyone if things were clear. She used words like lease and responsibility. She said it would help her feel secure. She said it would prevent confusion later. I read what I could, but she kept talking. Logan was sitting at the table watching me. He did not say much, but his presence made the moment feel like a test. I signed. I did it because I did not want to fight. I did it because I thought it was just an agreement between family members. I did it because I believed Erin when she acted like it was normal. I did not feel proud of that choice. I just felt tired. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself she would calm down once life settled. After that, Erin started using that paper like a tool. If I questioned a rule, she would mention the lease. If I suggested a small change, she would mention the lease. If I said I planned to visit my sister for a weekend, she would mention the lease and ask if the rent would still be paid on time. She said it in a light voice, like a joke, but it was not a joke. It was a line she liked to pull when she wanted control. I was not living there for free. I paid for groceries often. I paid for repairs. I handled the yard. I kept the place clean. I drove Erin to appointments when her car was in the shop. I did small things without being asked. But none of that counted in her new math. In her new math, the only thing that mattered was that she could point at paper and say she had power. The first time I realized how far it had gone was a Saturday afternoon. Erin had friends over. I knew one of them, Maya. Maya had been around since Erin was in college. Maya is the kind of person who mirrors the strongest personality in the room. If Erin is confident, Maya becomes confident. If Erin is sharp, Maya becomes sharp. Maya laughs at the same jokes Erin laughs at. She leans into whatever story makes Erin look important. That day, they were in the living room. Music was playing from a small speaker. I stayed in the kitchen and made tea. I did not want to hover. I did not want to embarrass Erin by acting like a strict parent. I wanted her to have her space. I also wanted the house to feel calm. Logan arrived later. He carried himself like he owned the place. He greeted Erin with warmth. He barely looked at me. He asked where the drinks were. Erin pointed to the fridge. Maya laughed at something he said. It was not even funny, but she laughed anyway. I went out to the porch to check the outdoor light I had fixed earlier. The bulb had flickered the night before, and I wanted to make sure the connection was tight. I was crouched near the fixture when I heard the front door open behind me. Erin stepped out. I could hear her friends inside, still laughing, still talking. Erin told me we needed to talk about the lease. She said it loudly, like she wanted witnesses. She said I was behind again. She said the arrangement was simple and I kept acting confused. She said I either needed to pay the lease like an adult or leave. She said it like she was doing something brave. For a second, I stayed crouched. I looked at the screw in my hand. It was a small screw, dull silver, nothing special. I remember thinking that the screw had more honesty than the moment behind me. I stood up slowly. I brushed my hands on my pants. I looked at Erin's face. Her eyes were wide. Her mouth was tight. She was not asking. She was performing. I told her I understood. I did not argue. I did not raise my voice. I did not remind her of everything I had done. I did not list my sacrifices. That kind of list never helps. People like Erin do not hear it. They only hear weakness, even when it is truth. Erin went back inside. The door closed. The music kept playing. I stayed on the porch a few seconds longer. The air felt colder than it should have. I looked at the yard I had mowed last week. I looked at the steps I had repaired. I looked at the driveway I had shoveled in winter. I felt something settle inside me like a switch moving into place. I went to my room and sat on the edge of the bed. It was not really my room. It was a small guest space with a dresser that still smelled like old wood polish. I kept my things neat. I always did. I folded my shirts. I lined up my shoes. I did not spread out. I did not want to feel too comfortable in a place where comfort could be used against me. That night, I did not sleep much. I kept hearing Erin's words in my head, not because they hurt like a sharp wound, but because they showed me something plain. She believed I had no real ground under my feet. She believed she could remove me with noise and paper. She believed the house was hers to control. Around midnight, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. The sound cut through the quiet like a small alarm. I reached for it, expecting another message from Erin about rules or payments. Instead, I saw a calendar reminder I had not looked at in a long time. It was a simple note from years ago, set to repeat once a year. It was about the house, and it made my chest go still. The reminder on my phone was something I made years ago. Back then, I was still working long weeks. I was still counting every cost. I set reminders for things that mattered because I knew I could forget after a bad day. The reminder was about the house. It was about the date I closed on it and the date I finished paying the last big repair bill. It was also a reminder to check my folder and keep everything updated. I stared at that screen for a long time. Not because I felt proud. I felt tired. I felt like I was watching a pattern repeat. I had spent my whole life building stable ground for other people. Now my own child was acting like I was a temporary problem she could move out of the way. It did not start like this. Erin was not born cold. When she was small, she was curious and intense. She wanted to know how things worked. She followed me around when I fixed things. She asked why a faucet leaked. She asked why a door stuck in winter. I would explain, and she would listen. And she used to look at me like I was the person who could solve hard problems. Her mother and I separated when Erin was still young. I am not going to paint anyone as a villain. Life is messy. People make choices. What matters is that Erin stayed with me most of the time. Her mother visited. Some weeks were calm, some weeks were tense. I learned quickly that a child does not need perfect parents. A child needs steady parents. I tried to be steady. I got Erin to school on time. I cooked simple meals. I went to parent meetings. I saved for her future. I did not buy fancy things. I bought safety. I bought time. I bought quiet. I worked in buildings where everything had a schedule. If you missed one inspection, a small issue became a big cost. That way of thinking followed me home. I kept files. I kept lists. I kept a folder for the house, a folder for Erin's school, a folder for medical records, a folder for insurance. People used to tease me for that. They said I was too careful. I did not mind. Careful is how you protect people who depend on you. When Erin got older, she started caring more about image. It was not sudden. It was like a slow change in weather. She started watching what other people had. She started comparing. She started wanting bigger things faster. She was not wrong for wanting more. But she became impatient with the idea that life takes time. I paid for her classes when she wanted extra help. I paid for her first used car. I fixed it when it made strange sounds. I drove her to practice and picked her up late. I listened to her talk about friends, and I listened to her cry about friends. I never told her she was silly. I told her feelings are real, even when the problem is small. When she went to college, I did not have the kind of money that solves every problem. I had the kind of money that covers what is needed if you plan well. I took extra shifts. I did contract work on weekends. I ate lunch from home. I did not complain. I told myself it was the job. I told myself my role was to carry weight quietly. Erin thanked me back then. She did. She would call. She would tell me she missed my cooking. She would ask how my day was. She would say she was proud of me. Those words mattered to me. I did not need constant praise, but I needed to know I was still her father in her eyes. After college, she moved around a lot. New jobs, new plans, new goals. She always spoke like she was on the edge of something big. I wanted to support that. I also wanted her to learn patience. Every time I tried to bring that up, she would act like I was holding her back. When she started dating Logan, I tried to be open. I did not want to be the father who blocks everything. I met him. I shook his hand. I asked about his work. He answered like he was giving a speech. He talked more than he listened. He was polite enough, but the politeness felt thin. Over time, I noticed something. When Erin spent time with Logan, she started using the same kind of words he used. She started talking about people like they were levels in a game. She started acting like a person is important only if others fear them or follow them. She started looking at calm people like they were invisible. I did not push back hard. I told myself she was an adult. I told myself I could not control who she became. I could only control how I treated her. So I stayed calm, I stayed kind, I stayed steady. That choice had a cost. Calm people often become the easiest target. If you do not react, others think you do not feel. If you do not shout, others think you do not matter. Erin slowly started treating my calm as permission. The small disrespect came first. She would interrupt me when I spoke. She would roll her eyes when I explained something. She would ask me to do tasks like I was staff. She would say she was busy, and she would say I had more free time anyway. She stopped asking. She started telling. When she moved back into the house, she told people it was her house. I did not correct her in front of others. I thought it was temporary and not worth a public conflict, but I noticed she never said it was our home. She never said she was grateful. She said she was rebuilding, and she said she was finally taking control. It sounded strong when she said it. It also sounded like she needed to push someone down to feel tall. The week she put the whiteboard by the fridge, she told me it would help everyone stay organized. She spoke like she was managing a team. She put my name next to tasks that were already my routine. She wrote time limits next to them like she expected failure. She looked at me and asked if I agreed. I said I understood. I did not argue about a board. Logan liked the whiteboard. He pointed at it and smiled, like it proved something about leadership. He would tap a marker against his hand and look at me as if I was going to break rules. Some nights, he would sit in the living room with his shoes on the couch. If I asked him to move them, Erin would sigh like I was being difficult. Erin also started changing little things without telling me. She moved my mug to the back of the cabinet. She moved my coat from the hall hook to a closet. She moved my tools from a shelf to a box. She did not throw them away. She just hid them like she wanted my presence to shrink. I tried to talk to her privately once. I told her I felt like I was walking on thin ice in that house. I told her I wanted us to be respectful to each other. She responded with a cold smile and said the rules were simple. She said if I wanted comfort, I should get my own place. She said she was done managing me. Then she walked away. That sentence stayed with me, not because it was cruel, it was because it showed her view. In her mind, I was not a father who helped. I was a problem to manage. A few days later, she brought up the paper again. She told me the lease meant I needed to be consistent. She said it was fair. She said adults pay their share. She said nobody gets a free ride. Logan sat nearby and nodded like a judge. I felt my face stay neutral, but inside I felt something heavy. Erin had grown into a person who could use moral words to cover a power move. I started noticing how she treated other people too. She talked to service workers with impatience. She acted annoyed when someone did not move fast enough. She praised people only when they offered her something. She dismissed people who could not help her. One evening, her friend Maya came over, and they talked in the kitchen while I cleaned dishes. They spoke like I was not there. Erin said she could not wait until the house felt like hers again. Maya asked what that meant. Erin said it meant no extra weight. She said it meant no more constant reminders of the past. Then she looked at me and smiled like it was all harmless. I dried my hands and went to the garage. I sat on a stool and looked at my tool rack. I realized that the tools were treated with more care than I was. Tools are respected because people need them. When people think they do not need you anymore, respect becomes optional. The public porch incident did not come out of nowhere. It was the result of weeks of testing. Erin tested small boundaries. She watched to see if I pushed back. When I did not, she tested bigger ones. She watched my face. She watched my posture. She watched for signs of fear. When she did not see them, she took that as surrender. The next morning after the porch incident, Erin acted normal. She made coffee. She talked about her plans. She asked if I could pick up a package later. She spoke like the porch moment never happened. That was another part of the pattern. She could be sharp and then act like nothing happened. If I tried to discuss it, she would say I was dramatic. Logan came by that afternoon. He walked into the kitchen and opened the fridge like it was his. He asked Erin if she had handled the situation with me. Erin said she had. Logan glanced at me and said it was good to set boundaries. He said some people only learn when you make them uncomfortable. Erin laughed and said she was learning to be strong. I kept quiet. I rinsed my mug. I put it away. I did not give Logan a reaction. He seemed disappointed by that. People like him prefer a scene because a scene makes them feel powerful. Later that day, Erin sent a message to the family group chat. She told everyone she was making changes and that she needed support. She said she was finally taking control of her home. She did not mention that she had shouted at me on the porch. She did not mention that she had tried to treat me like a tenant in public. She framed it like she was dealing with a difficult situation and doing the responsible thing. My sister responded with a simple question. She asked if I was okay. Erin replied fast and said I was fine. She said I just needed structure. She said I had trouble respecting rules. Reading that line felt like stepping on a loose board. It showed me Erin was not only pushing me in private, she was building a story where I looked unstable and she looked heroic. That is when I understood the bigger risk. If she could shape the story, she could shape how people treated me. If she could make me look like a problem, then any action against me would look reasonable. She could remove me from the home, and others would applaud her for being strong. That night, I did not shout. I did not cry. And I did not slam doors. I sat in my small room and opened my phone. I scrolled through messages. I looked at dates. I looked at what was said and how it was said. I did not reply. I did not argue. I simply observed. In the garage, I took out an old folder I had kept for years. It was not something I touched often. It was one of those things you keep because you are careful. I placed it on the workbench and stared at it for a long time. I did not open it yet. I just looked at the label. The next day, Erin told me the next payment was due soon. She said if I wanted to stay, I needed to prove I could follow the agreement. She said she was tired of carrying people. She said Logan was not comfortable with me being around if I could not act like an adult. She said I was replaceable in that home. I nodded. I told her I understood. Then I went back to my room, sat on the bed, and started making quiet decisions I had avoided for too long. The next week felt like Erin was running an experiment. She watched what I did, how I moved, and how quickly I obeyed. Every request became a test. If I took out the trash an hour later than she liked, she would comment. If I parked a little closer to the garage, she would comment. If I cooked something with a smell she did not like, she would comment. She did not yell every time. She did not need to. She used her tone and her timing. Logan enjoyed it. I could see it in his face. When Erin corrected me, he would look at me and then look away like I was not worth his full attention. Sometimes he spoke for her. He would say the house needed strong rules. He would say adults should not need reminders. He would say Erin was finally learning to stop being soft. Erin would nod and repeat the same ideas in her own words. It was like they practiced the lines together. One morning I found a new keypad on the front door. It was not there the day before. Erin said she wanted better security. She said she was protecting the home. She said she would share the code, but she wanted to make sure I understood the rules first. She said it like she was a manager talking to a worker. I asked when she planned to share it. She said soon, if I stayed consistent. That was not about security, that was about control. She also moved my things again. My coat was gone from the hall. My shoes were moved to the garage, even though it was cold outside. My mug was not in the cabinet. I found it in a box on top of the fridge like it was an extra item, not something used every day. Erin said she was making space. She said Logan might keep a few things there soon. She said I had too much clutter for someone who was only staying temporarily. I had not heard her say temporary in weeks. Now she used it with a sharp smile. That evening she announced a house meeting. She said she wanted everyone on the same page. Logan sat at the table like he belonged there. Maya came too, smiling and holding her phone in her hand like she might record a fun moment. Erin stood by the fridge near the whiteboard. She pointed at the lists and spoke like she was presenting a plan. She said the lease meant structure. She said the lease meant consequences. She said she was done repeating herself. Then she looked at me and said I had two options. I could pay on time and follow every rule without discussion, or I could leave by the end of the month. She said it slowly, so everyone heard. Logan nodded once. Maya looked at me with a face that tried to be neutral, but it was not neutral. It was the look people give when they think you are already finished. I kept my voice steady. I told Erin I understood. I told her she had a right to set rules in her home. I said it because I did not want to fight in that moment. I did not want to give them what they wanted, which was a scene. Erin seemed almost disappointed. Logan leaned back in his chair like he was waiting for more. After the meeting, Erin acted cheerful. She offered snacks to her guests. She laughed like it was all normal. She talked about future plans and how the home would feel cleaner soon. She did not look at me when she said that. She looked at Logan. I went to the garage and sat at my workbench. I did not pick up a tool. I just sat and listened to the muffled noise inside. Laughter, music, small footsteps on the floor. I felt my chest tight in a quiet way, not like panic, but like pressure building behind a wall. I thought about the word replaceable. Erin had used it with ease, like it was an honest fact. That word landed deeper than her porch comment. A porch moment can be heat. Replaceable is a belief. That night, I started doing what I should have done earlier. I began collecting facts, not arguments. I opened my phone and scrolled back through messages from Erin. I took screenshots of the ones that had clear dates and clear demands. I saved them in a folder with a simple name. I turned off automatic deletion for my messages. I made sure the backups were active. I wrote down the days she mentioned payments and deadlines. I did not do it to punish her. I did it because I finally understood the shape of the problem. Erin was building a record where she looked responsible and I looked unreliable. If she ever tried to force me out in a formal way, she would use that story. I needed my own record of what was real. The next day, Erin changed more than the door. She changed the way she spoke to me in front of others. If Logan was there, she spoke louder. If Maya was there, Erin added little jokes. She would say I forgot things. She would say I moved too slowly. She would say I needed to learn to follow rules. Each comment was small, but they stacked. Logan also began calling the house our place. He would stand in the doorway and talk about where his furniture would go. He would talk about how he could turn the guest room into an office. He would point to the shelf where I kept my books and say it could be cleared. Erin would agree quickly. She would say she wanted a fresh start. I realized something in those moments. They were not only trying to remove me, they were trying to erase the past I represented. I was not just a person to them. I was a reminder of a time when Erin depended on someone. They wanted to replace that with a new story where Erin stood alone, strong, supported by Logan. My presence did not fit their script. A few days later, Erin told me she wanted all mail to be addressed to her only. She said it was simpler. She said she did not want confusion with deliveries. She said if I needed something, I could use a mailbox rental. She said that without any shame, like it was a normal thing to tell your father. That was the moment I felt the switch fully flip. Not anger, not a loud decision, just clarity. I went for a walk that afternoon. I walked past the houses on our street and nodded at the neighbors who were outside. I saw Mr. Patel near his garden. He is older than me, with steady hands and a calm way of speaking. He asked how I was doing. I almost gave the usual answer. Then I stopped myself. I told him the truth in simple words. I said things were tense inside the house. I said Erin wanted me out. I said I did not want trouble, but I needed to handle it properly. Mr. Patel listened without interrupting. He did not gossip. He did not take sides right away. He just listened. Then he said something that stayed with me. He said he remembered when I bought the house. He said he remembered the moving truck and the day I painted the porch railing. He said the neighborhood always knew it was my place because I was the one who cared for it for years. He said young people sometimes confuse noise with authority. I thanked him and kept walking. His words did not solve anything, but they reminded me that my reality existed outside Erin's story. The next morning, Erin stood in the kitchen with her phone and told me she had updated the payment schedule. She said I needed to sign a new version soon. She said it would include extra fees if I was late. She said it was fair because she was taking a risk letting me stay. Logan sat at the counter and watched me like I was a student about to fail a test. I told Erin I understood. I told her I would review everything carefully. That was the first time I used the word carefully with her. Erin's eyes narrowed. She asked what I meant. I said I meant I wanted to be clear on expectations. Erin told me the expectations were already clear. Logan smiled like he saw a challenge. That afternoon, I drove to the county records building. I did not tell Erin where I was going. I did not announce it. I simply went. The parking lot was half full. The building was plain and quiet, the kind of place people ignore until they need it. Inside, the air smelled like paper and old carpet. People stood in lines with folders. A clerk called numbers with a tired voice. I took a number and waited. I watched the room. Some people looked nervous. Some looked impatient. I felt calm. Systems like this do not respond to noise. They respond to facts. That is why I like them. When it was my turn, I spoke politely and asked what steps were required to request property records. I did not say why. I did not tell a story. I asked simple questions. The clerk explained the process, what identification was needed, and how copies could be ordered. I thanked them and wrote down the instructions. I left with my notes and sat in my car for a moment before starting the engine. My hands were steady on the steering wheel. I felt something I had not felt in weeks. Direction. Back home, Erin was in a good mood. That is how it often is with people who think they already won. She asked me to pick up groceries. She asked me to fix a shelf in the hallway. She spoke sweetly, as if the house meeting never happened. I said I would handle the shelf. I did not go to the store. I went to the garage. In the garage, I made 3 small piles. One pile was what I needed daily. One pile was what mattered emotionally. One pile was tools and personal items that were clearly mine. I found an old suitcase and opened it. I folded clothes with care. I placed my documents in an envelope and put it inside a plain bag. I did not take everything. I only took what I could lose control of if Erin decided to push harder. Over the next days, Erin became more confident. She started inviting people over without warning. She started talking about repainting rooms. She started talking about finally moving forward. Logan began leaving items in the guest room: shoes, a bag, a jacket. Erin smiled when she saw them. She looked at the room like it was already converted. I kept doing my quiet work. I saved messages. I wrote dates. I backed up notes. I kept my tone calm. I gave them nothing to point at. No shouting, no drama, no threats. Only a man watching the timeline and preparing to step out of the trap. One night, I stood in my small room and looked at the dresser. The drawer was half empty. My suitcase was ready. The garage was organized. My phone was charged. My notes were clean and simple. I realized I was no longer waiting for Erin to be kind. I was preparing to act like an adult in a world that respects only clear ownership and clear boundaries. And for the first time, I did not feel like I was losing my home. I felt like I was about to reclaim my life. The next day, I went out early before Erin woke up. I left a note on the counter that said I had errands. I did not explain more. If I explained, she would ask questions. If she asked questions, she would try to control the answer. The air outside felt clean. The street was quiet. I drove slowly, like I was saving my focus for later. I parked near the bank and sat in my car for a minute. I watched people walk in and out with small envelopes and tired faces. I reminded myself that I was not there to fight. I was there to set my life in order. Inside the bank, the lights were bright and flat. A clerk greeted me with a practiced smile. I told her I needed to handle a few personal matters. I said I wanted privacy and clear steps. She asked for my identification and guided me to a small desk. I opened a simple folder and showed only what I needed to show. I asked about a safe deposit box. I asked about account access and how to protect personal items from confusion. I used plain language. The clerk stayed calm. She explained the options and the rules. She did not care about my family story. She cared about forms, identity, and procedure. That was exactly what I wanted. I left the bank with a small key and a short list of rules. I did not feel excited. I felt steady. I placed the key in a pocket that I never used for anything else. Then I sat in my car and breathed out slowly. It was a small step, but it mattered. It meant my important items would not sit in a drawer Erin could open when she felt angry. From there, I drove to a small office building on the other side of town. It had a sign outside with several names in small letters. I had the name of one attorney, Ms. Chen, saved in my phone. I got it from a coworker years ago when he needed help with a property problem. I never thought I would need that number, but life has a way of proving that nothing is truly just in case. Ms. Chen's receptionist asked me to sit and wait. The waiting room smelled like coffee and paper. There were old magazines on a table. A small printer made quiet sounds behind a door. I watched the printer and thought about how many lives get changed by calm pages and quiet stamps. When Ms. Chen met me, she did not try to charm me. She asked short questions and listened closely. I told her I was dealing with a family conflict around a home. I told her someone was trying to treat me like I had no standing there. I said I wanted to end the situation cleanly, through the correct systems. I told her I did not want drama or threats. I wanted clarity and a lawful path. She asked what I had. I told her I had messages, dates, and a paper that was being used like a weapon against me. I told her I also had older records, but I did not want to rely on memory. I said I wanted the real status confirmed properly. She nodded and said she understood. She told me not to argue inside the house anymore. She told me to stay calm, keep everything in one place, and do nothing impulsive. She said that if I wanted control back, I needed to use structure, not emotion. I left her office with a small card and a list of next steps. I did not show any documents. I did not wave anything in the air. I just listened, thanked her, and walked out. On the drive back, my phone buzzed with a message from Erin. She asked where I was and when I would be back. She said a delivery was coming and she needed me to be home to receive it. I did not reply right away. I did not want to train her that she could summon me like a worker. I stopped at a storage facility near the highway. It was clean and plain, with bright doors and a smell of dust and metal. A man at the desk asked for my name and a reason. I told him I needed space for personal items. He did not ask more. He handed me a set of papers and a small lock. I signed where he pointed. The process was simple, and I liked that. I carried a few boxes from my car into the unit. They were not heavy. They were mostly tools, an old photo album, and small keepsakes. I placed everything along one wall with careful spacing. I did it the way I always did things. I made it easy to see what was there. I made it easy to prove what was mine. When I got home, Erin was in the kitchen with her phone in her hand. Logan was there too, leaning against the counter. Erin asked where I'd been. I told her I had errands and meetings. She asked what kind of meetings. I said personal ones. Logan laughed lightly and said I was being secretive. Erin said secrecy was not good in a shared home. I told her I understood her concern. I told her I was handling my own responsibilities. Erin asked if that meant I had money for the lease now. She said it like she was pressing a button. Logan watched my face, waiting for a reaction. I kept my voice even. I told Erin I was reviewing everything carefully and keeping records. Erin's posture changed. She asked why I needed records. She said it was simple. She said adults keep their word. I said I agreed. Then I said that clear records protect everyone. I did not raise my voice. I did not accuse her. I just stated a calm fact. Erin turned away and started talking about the delivery again. She said I needed to be more helpful. Logan added that cooperation was part of living with others. I nodded and said I understood. Then I walked to my room. In my room, I opened my bag and checked my folder. I kept it plain on purpose. No big label, no dramatic words. I placed my phone on the bed and backed up the latest messages. I wrote down the date of Erin's house meeting and the date she installed the keypad. I wrote down the day she moved my things. I did not write feelings. I wrote facts. Over the next few days, Erin became bolder. She acted like the month deadline was already decided. She told her friends she was setting boundaries and taking charge. I heard those phrases through her phone calls, even when she tried to keep her voice low. She spoke as if she was the responsible one, and I was a problem she was solving. Logan started bringing more items into the house. He placed a pair of shoes by the door, like a marker. He left a bag in the guest room. Erin began talking about painting and redecorating. She said she wanted the house to feel more modern. She said some rooms felt old and heavy. She did not say my name, but she did not have to. One afternoon I came home and found my toolbox moved again. It was pushed behind a shelf, half hidden. Erin said she needed the space for Logan's things. I told her I understood. I picked up the toolbox and carried it to the garage without a word. I could feel Logan watching me, waiting for anger. I did not give it to him. I also noticed Erin changing her habits. She stopped leaving her phone face down. She started stepping outside to take calls. She started talking in the driveway and looking around like she did not want witnesses. That told me she understood something. She could sense that I was no longer just absorbing everything. She did not know what I was doing, but she could feel that I was not bending the same way. At night, I stayed in my room and made small plans. I looked at my calendar. I checked my work schedule. I checked how much time I needed to move my remaining items. I made a list of what I could leave behind without regret. I also listed what I could not afford to lose. That list was short. It was also clear. I called my sister once. I did not tell her every detail. I told her the situation was tense and I was handling it properly. She asked if I was safe. I told her I was fine. I said there was no shouting from me. I said I was staying calm and keeping records. My sister told me she was proud of me for being steady. She told me not to let anyone turn me into a story that was not true. The next morning, Erin sent another message to the family group chat. She said she had exciting changes coming. She said she was creating a new start and needed everyone to respect her rules. She wrote it like a public announcement. She did not mention me directly, but the meaning was clear. She was framing herself as the owner of the house in everyone's minds. A few relatives responded with encouraging words. Some used phrases like, "Your home, your rules." I read those lines and felt a familiar, quiet weight. People are quick to support the loudest voice. Most people do not ask who paid for the walls or who kept the lights on for years. They support whatever sounds confident. I did not reply in the group chat. I did not argue with family on a screen. I saved the message and the date. Then I put my phone down and continued packing. In the afternoons, I made small trips to the storage unit. I moved books. I moved a chair from my room. I moved a box of old work files and training manuals. I moved my winter coat and a few framed photos. I did it slowly, not because I was weak, but because I did not want attention. If Erin saw me carrying big loads, she would either mock me or try to stop me. Quiet steps were better. Erin and Logan started acting like I was already gone. They would talk about weekends away. They would talk about hosting more gatherings. They would talk about changing locks again. Sometimes I heard Erin say the house felt lighter lately. Logan would agree. One evening, Erin stood in the doorway of my room without knocking. She looked around like she was inspecting a space. She asked if I was moving out. I told her I was organizing my things. She said I needed to be clear because she had plans. I told her I understood, then I asked her to knock next time. Erin's face tightened. She said privacy is earned. Logan appeared behind her and smiled like the moment amused him. I did not argue. I simply closed my suitcase and set it by the dresser. Erin walked away, and I heard her voice change as she spoke to Logan. She sounded pleased, like she understood my request as surrender. That was fine. Let her believe what she wanted. That night, I sat at the edge of the bed and looked at the small space around me. The room was almost empty now. The house felt less like a home and more like a stage where Erin and Logan played roles. I realized I had been trying to earn respect from people who only respected control. I picked up my folder and checked my notes one more time. Dates, messages, patterns. I placed the folder in my bag and put the bag near the door. Then I turned off the light and lay down, calm and alert, like a man who finally stopped hoping for kindness and started preparing for reality. The next morning I woke up before sunrise. The house was quiet. I could hear the fridge hum and the soft tick of the hallway clock. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at my nearly empty room. My suitcase was closed. My dresser drawers were clean. The space already looked like someone had never lived there. I did not feel sad in a dramatic way. I felt clear. I had spent too many days waiting for Erin to remember who I was. I had spent too many nights hoping Logan would stop treating me like a problem. Hope can be useful, but hope can also keep you stuck. I walked to the kitchen and made a simple breakfast. Erin came in wearing headphones, looking at her phone. She did not greet me. She opened the fridge and took out a drink. Then she looked at the counter and asked if I had the payment ready. She said it like she was asking if the trash was taken out. I told her I was handling my responsibilities. I told her I would not discuss money in the kitchen anymore. Erin raised her eyebrows. She said this was her home and she could ask what she wanted. I told her I understood her view. Then I told her I would handle things properly through the systems that matter. I kept my tone calm. I did not explain more. Erin laughed a little and said I was being dramatic. She said I always acted like a quiet hero. Then she walked out of the room, still looking at her phone. I let her go. I did not chase her words. I did not chase her approval. I left the house with a small bag and drove to the real estate office. The building was plain. The parking lot had a few cars. Inside, the air smelled like fresh paper and coffee. A man named Mr. Alvarez greeted me. He He spoke in a steady voice and asked what I needed. I told him I wanted a simple process. I told him I wanted privacy. I told him I wanted a clean timeline with no surprises. He nodded and asked a few questions. He did not ask about feelings. He asked about facts. That was the kind of conversation I could trust. He explained how the next days might look. He explained how viewings could be limited, how information could be controlled, and how communication could stay professional. I listened. I asked a few questions. I wrote down what mattered. When he slid papers across the desk, I did not read them like a man trying to win a fight. I read them like a man protecting his future. I signed where I was instructed, slowly and carefully. I did not smile. I did not frown. I simply did what needed to be done. When I left the office, my shoulders felt lighter, not because my problems were gone, but because the path was no longer just inside my head. There was now a process. There was now a timeline. There were now people whose job was to follow rules. I drove to the storage unit next and moved 2 more boxes. One held old photos in thin frames. One held my work manuals and a few notebooks from years ago. Those notebooks were not valuable to anyone else, but they mattered to me. They were proof of who I had been before Erin decided I was a burden. After that, I checked into a cheap motel near the highway. It was not a place you brag about. The room smelled like cleaning spray and old carpet. The bed cover was thin, the lights were harsh, but it was quiet, and the door locked behind me with a solid click. For the first time in weeks, I was alone without feeling watched. I sat on the edge of the bed and took a slow breath. I looked at the walls, I looked at the small table, I looked at the single chair. I reminded myself that comfort is not only about furniture. Comfort is also about not being pushed every hour. That evening, Erin called me twice. I did not answer. She sent a message asking where I was. She said she needed to know because she had plans. She wrote that if I was not going to be there, I had to tell her in advance. She wrote that this was basic respect. I read the message once, I saved it, then I put my phone down. I did not respond. I did not want to argue in text. I did not want to feed her the idea that she could still direct my movements. Later, I opened my laptop and reviewed my notes. I checked the dates I had written down. I checked the screenshots and backups. I kept everything in one folder. I did not add opinions. I did not add anger. I added only what was clear and true. The next morning, I went to a cafe and sat in the corner with a cup of coffee. I watched people come and go. I listened to the low sounds of normal life. A couple talked about groceries. A man complained about traffic. A woman typed on a laptop with a focused face. It was ordinary, and that ordinary feeling helped me. While I sat there, Erin posted online again. I saw it because a relative sent me a screenshot. Erin wrote about starting fresh and not carrying anyone anymore. She wrote about boundaries. She wrote about being strong. She did not mention my name, but she did not have to. People in her circle would understand who she meant. The comments were full of support. People told her she was brave. People told her she was doing the right thing. I stared at those words and felt the old pattern in a new shape. Erin was not only removing me from the house, she was removing me from the story. She was placing herself in the center and pushing me to the edge. I did not reply to anyone. I did not ask relatives to defend me. I did not write my own post. I kept my focus on what I could control. Public opinion shifts like wind. Records stay. Over the next few days, I made short trips back to the house. At times, Erin was usually out. I took the last few items I needed. A small lamp, a set of tools I did not want to lose, a coat that belonged to my father. I moved each item quietly. I did not leave the house messy. I did not slam doors. I did not create a scene. On one of those trips, I saw Logan's things spread out more. His shoes were lined by the door like they had always been there. A jacket was hanging in the hall. A box with his name on it sat near the couch. Erin had placed a new picture frame on the shelf. It was a photo of her and Logan smiling. My own family photo was gone from that spot. I stood there for a moment and let myself feel the truth. They were building a new home image, and my role in it was temporary guest. I did not fight that image inside the house. I simply stepped away from it. Erin left a note on the fridge with a list of new rules. It said quiet hours. It said guests had priority on weekends. It said storage areas were changing. It said any late payment would cause immediate action. The words were sharp and formal. It read like a person trying to sound like an authority. I took a photo of the note and left it where it was. I did not tear it down. I did not add my own note. I walked out and locked the door behind me. That night, Erin called again. This time I answered because I wanted one clear boundary. Erin asked where I was staying. She asked when I was coming back. She said she needed to plan. Her voice was fast and tight. I told her I was not coming back to live under threats. I told her I would communicate through proper channels from now on. Erin said I was being stubborn. She said the lease was real and I had to follow it. She said she would not be made to look weak in her own home. I told her I understood her feelings. Then I told her I was done discussing it on the phone. I said I would handle everything the right way. Then I ended the call. My hands were steady when I put the phone down. I did not feel proud. I felt calm. The calm did not come from confidence alone. It came from choosing a method that did not depend on Erin's mood. On the 5th day at the motel, Ms. Chen's office called me back. The receptionist said, "Ms. Chen had reviewed the information and that I should keep my timeline simple and my behavior consistent." I told her I understood. I thanked her. I kept the call short. And then that afternoon, Mr. Alvarez also called. He spoke in his practical tone and said the schedule was moving forward. He said things were lining up as expected. He did not speak like a man trying to impress me. He spoke like a man doing a job. I thanked him and ended the call. I went for a walk near the motel that evening. The sidewalk ran beside a row of small shops and a gas station. Cars passed in steady streams. I watched headlights move like lines of light. I thought about how Erin had looked at me on the porch that day when she told me to pay or leave. She had looked certain. She had looked pleased with her own power. I understood something then. Erin did not just want money. She wanted the feeling of making me move. She wanted the proof that she could push me and I would obey. That is why she did it in front of people. That is why she used big words like lease and consequences. It was a performance of control. I also understood my own mistake. I kept trying to be the gentle father who absorbed pain for peace. But peace that costs your dignity is not peace. It is just silence with pressure underneath. The next morning, I packed my bag neatly. I placed my folder inside. I checked my phone charge. I put my keys in the same pocket I always used for keys. Then I sat on the bed and looked at the room one last time. I did not feel like I was running away. I felt like I was stepping out of a trap. I drove back toward the neighborhood in the afternoon, not to argue, but to finish the last quiet tasks. I parked a few streets away and walked the rest of the way. The air was cold, and my breath showed in front of me. I could see the house from a distance. It looked the same as it always did, but I knew the inside had changed. I stopped on the sidewalk and watched for a moment. I reminded myself of the rule I set in my mind. No shouting, no begging, no scenes. Everything handled properly. Everything done through systems that do not care who laughs loudest at the table. Then I turned and walked back to my car, calm and ready for what came next. Saturday arrived gray and cold. I parked 2 streets away and walked the last part with my hands in my coat pockets. From the sidewalk, I could hear music through the walls, the kind of music people play when they want the home to feel like a victory. Cars were lined along the curb. Erin had invited people to witness her new beginning. She wanted a crowd. Crowds make loud decisions feel right. I stayed out of sight for a few minutes and watched the front windows. I saw shapes moving inside. I saw Logan cross the living room with a drink in his hand. I saw Maya lift her phone as if she was capturing a moment for later. Erin moved like a host. Her posture was straight. Her smile looked practiced. Then another car turned into the street and slowed in front of the house. It was not one of Erin's friends. It was a newer car with 2 calm adults inside, the kind of people who do not arrive to argue. A second vehicle followed, and I recognized the logo on the side as a locksmith service. I walked closer, steady and quiet. I stopped near the edge of the driveway where I could see the porch clearly. The new couple stepped out first. They looked around once, checked the house number, and nodded to each other. The locksmith stayed by his van, waiting like a professional who only moves when asked. Erin opened the front door and stepped outside with a bright smile, but the smile faded when she realized she did not know them. She asked what was going on. The couple introduced themselves and explained they were there for possession and the first lock change. They spoke in simple terms, like people who have already done the paperwork and do not need to raise their voices. Erin's face tightened. She said there had to be a mistake. She said she lived there. She said she had an agreement. Logan came out behind her, looking irritated, as if someone had interrupted his role as host. Maya followed, phone in hand, still filming because she did not understand the difference between a scene and a serious moment. The couple stayed calm and said their purchase was complete. They said their agent had given them the scheduled time window. They said they had proof of ownership and a plan for the day. Erin's tone rose, and she tried to take charge of the porch the way she always did. She said nobody could enter without her approval. She said the lease gave her rights. She said she would call someone. I stepped forward then, not fast, not dramatic, just present. Erin turned and looked at me like she had not expected me to be near the house at all. For a second, she seemed confused, then she tried to turn that confusion into authority. She asked why I was there. She told me to explain to them that this was her place. I told Erin I understood why she was upset. Then I told her this was the moment where facts matter more than noise. I reached into my bag and pulled out a thin folder. I held it low, not like a weapon, just like what it was. Paper. I told the couple I was Caleb and that I was the one who had owned the property until the sale closed. I said the transaction was completed properly. I said the transfer had been recorded. I said they were not trespassing and they were not confused. I said they were standing at the home they had purchased. Erin's mouth opened, then closed. She looked at the folder in my hands, and her eyes moved quickly, like she was trying to calculate a way to make the moment bend back toward her. Logan stepped down one porch step, trying to bring his body into the space like it would change the rules. He asked what I thought I was doing. He said this was not fair. He tried to speak over the couple. The couple did not respond to his tone. They responded to the documents. The woman asked if I had the closing confirmation and the recorded transfer information. I nodded and showed her the key pages. I did not wave anything around. I did not perform. I pointed to names, dates, and the recorded details. Erin started shaking her head. She said I could not do this to her. She said I had promised her stability. She said she had been planning a future there. She said she would fix whatever went wrong if I just stopped. She moved closer to me like she expected me to soften the way I always had. I told her I had given her stability for years. I told her I had helped her rebuild more than once. I told her the only thing I asked for in return was basic respect. I reminded her of the porch moment, the house meeting, the keypad, and the way she used the so-called lease to push me down in front of others. I said she had made it clear she wanted me out, and I had taken her seriously. Erin pulled out her phone and called me even though I was standing a few feet away. The screen lit up in her hand. Her fingers trembled. She tried to make it private, but it could not be private anymore. I let the phone ring. I did not answer, because there was nothing left to negotiate. Logan took his phone out too. He started talking fast, like he was searching for someone with power. But power does not come from speed when the process is complete. Maya's filming slowed, then stopped, because her face changed. She realized this was not the kind of clip that gets laughs. This was the kind that makes people uncomfortable. The locksmith looked to the new owners for a signal. The man nodded once, calm and firm. The locksmith stepped up, placed his tools on the porch rail, and asked the owners to confirm which locks they wanted changed first. Erin tried to step into the doorway as if her body could block the procedure. The new owners told her they were willing to give her a short window to collect essentials, but they were not going to delay possession. Erin turned to me again, eyes wide, voice fast. She asked me to stop it, to undo it, to think about family. I told her I had thought about family for a long time. I told her this was the result of how she chose to treat me. I said I was not doing anything wrong. I said I was simply refusing to live under threats in my own property. The new owners asked Erin and Logan to step aside so the first lock could be changed. Erin stood frozen for a moment, like her mind could not accept that the world did not bend to her voice. Logan looked around at the guests inside, and I could see him realizing that his image was collapsing in real time. I stepped back toward the driveway, giving the porch space to the people who had the legal right to stand there. The locksmith set his tool against the lock. I heard the first clean metal click, small but final. Erin's phone slipped lower in her hand, as if it had suddenly become heavy. I watched the door handle turn under new control, and I walked away without looking back.